Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Creator's Kit, where I am sitting down with photographers, content creators, video people, anything in the motorsport world that uses tech and uses technology to make new content and bring wonderful stories to people. Today I have with me Sarah Levenson, and thank you for joining me, Sarah. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So I was prepping for our interview and I was like, I'm gonna try to do a nice introduction and everything and make sure that I list out everything that you do. But I was like, you just do so much. So I didn't want to get it wrong. So I was like, please give us a short little intro, who you are, what you do, why you love motorsports, etc.
Yeah, I think that's honestly very on brand for me that a lot of people don't really know everything that I do. And I try my best to talk about all of it on the internet and in person, but it sometimes just gets lost in the mix because, as you said, I just kind of have my hand in a little bit of everything. So, primarily, my quote to quote 9 to 5 or full time job is I run a marketing agency called Blue Flag Communications. It's 50% motorsports, 50% software and tech, and primarily everything that falls under marketing. So PR, social content. I do some investor relations in the tech world.
Right.
So, just the marketing umbrella that it typically tends to kind of encompass everything. And then as a pastime passion project, my friend Samantha and I run an account called Grid Clique. And that was when we started it in 2021 was primarily focused on trying to bolster and improve the awareness and recognition of women in motorsports and diversity in motorsports. We definitely still have that focus. We'll always have that focus. But when we started, we really wanted to start with the anticipation that we won't need to exist forever. We basically just found that there was a lot of women coming to us saying that they didn't feel like there was a space to talk about motorsports in almost like a safe way, because there was a
Right.
lot of environments where they would feel that, if they were a new fan, that they just didn't know enough and they didn't deserve a voice, or, they were a woman and everything that comes layered with that. So we started it, and again, with the whole purpose of hopefully one day we don't have to exist, and hopefully one day this doesn't
Right.
have to be the case. And very amazingly, in the last few years since we've started that, there have been so many female communities that have built and grown and flourished into this wonderful community that we have, and this wonderful environment that we have. So we were able to almost take a step away from that super hyper focus on women in motorsports and kind of
Right.
broaden our focus more on just general accessibility in motorsports. So we started in F1. Now we cover anything as it comes to IMSA, IndyCar, NASCAR, WEC. That almost, if it has four wheels,
You're
we've
there.
probably done something along those lines. In the next 2 years, I really want to start doing MotoGP as well. So it's going to go from four
Yeah.
into also two. So yeah, that's kind of the main gist is my full time life being in the marketing world in motorsports and beyond motorsports, and then as a passion project, still talking about accessibility in motorsports and trying to show the world all of the amazing racing that there is, F1 included, but way beyond the walls of F1 as well.
Yeah. Well, that's what I again when I was trying to figure out a way to introduce you, I was like, there's just so many series here that she covers and talks about and everything. So that's awesome that you're thinking about doing MotoGP. I don't watch MotoGP, but I'll occasionally catch it on TV, and it fascinates me every time. It is so cool.
It looks like a whole new world that I'm frothing at the mouth to jump into, but as it currently stands, there's already so much happening on Saturdays and Sundays that trying
Yeah.
to add another to the list is like, okay, what time do I have in my day to do that? But I'm determined. I'm sure that I'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. I have no doubt in my mind about that. Well, that is awesome. Again, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to take you through the creative processes as I have determined it, between the capture, organize, edit, publish, and analyze phases. So just kind of walking you through the tech tools that you use to make this happen. So starting with capture, I want to jump in here. I'm really happy you put this in the form that I sent you. you said all of your ideas go into Apple Notes, and I love that. I am like an Apple super user. So like, how does that workflow go? Do you just like when an idea pops into your head, it's literally just like Apple Notes gets opened up and written down? What is that? What is that like?
Yeah, so I have, well, okay, starting off context, I have ADHD and I have severe ADHD.
Me too.
So
Me too. Yes.
everything needs to be written down in some way, shape, or form. I love a list. When I was growing up, I like to tell myself I was type B, but like I've always been type A, and I just didn't really realize that until college. And I was like, oh, I have to like have systems in order to function.
Yes.
That could be useful. So everything is written down in some capacity. And I've just found that Apple Notes is the easiest because I can, I have it on both my computer and on my phone. So it doesn't matter where I am. I can be able to write things down or get access to lists or anything. So I have a master note for kind of the whole season. Doesn't matter what series, anything. It just literally says like 2026 season at the top. And I have a bank of like content of inspiration or ideas that I've, thought of that I want to have written down in like one paragraph. And then underneath that, I break it down by race. So like for Daytona, what I'll do is like, okay, if I know I want to take 2 ideas from my list, I'll put that in the Daytona kind of section of the note. And, include any relevant links or audios or, whatever you need for that. And then I will just sometimes add certain things to like a race specific list as well, not necessarily pulling from the top. And then beneath that, within the race itself that I'm talking about, I'll also have like a research section. So like if there's any content pieces that I need to be doing research for, create other lists for before I create the content, all of that information will be there as well. So I have them in toggle lists. So, the primary bank of content ideas on top, and then a toggle list of what race it is. So let's say, it's Daytona Rolex 24.
Right.
The bulleted list of content ideas, and then under that a toggle list within the race of all of like the research and notes or anything else. So that way it's all in one place. And then once the race is done, I have them like as like the checkbox bullets.
Yes.
I can as soon as it's posted, I can click that it's done. It'll be moved to the bottom. And then after the race, I can just toggle the race closed. And so it's not going to take up a ton of space. Or let's say I had content ideas put in for Rolex that I didn't get to. I can move it back up to like the notes, the ideas list at the top to be able to use for a different race. So it's taken me a few years to create this system. I've tried to do so many different ways. And last year we started making content really in 2020, but started going to races after COVID in 2021. And so since 2021, I've been trying to figure out a good system, and last year was the year that I like nailed the system, like after 4 years.
That is incredible. And this is like selfishly why I wanted to start this series, because this was like, that's the stuff that I love. Like people just being like, hey, I have this tool and I'm just going to build out this exact system that I need, and it works perfectly and everything. And the fact that you took 4 years to build it and perfect it and do everything, oh, I love that stuff. That is
time to figure out what works, right? So like I have Notion and I use Notion for some things, but I just don't naturally go to Notion as easily as I do Apple Notes, right? Or Apple Notes is also just a lot easier to share collaboratively. So like I can have this collaborative note shared with Samantha as well. So that way she can keep track of everything that's going on. She can see everything. It just makes it a very easy system.
Yeah, absolutely. That is why like a lot of people go to Apple. It's just because it's like the ease of use of it. And it's like super quick and I love it. So so then side question, what do you use Notion for? What is that? Is that capturing, or is that like organizing it?
Notion is more, I use it for a lot of personal things. I have all of like my packing lists for all of my races. So
smart.
I can just every year, I'm going to St. Pete again. I can just duplicate my packing list from last year and use the same thing. And then that way all of my race packing lists will have like all of my tech listed there as well, right? So in my personal items, I will have like everything I need, my microphones, cameras, XYZ, and that way I won't forget anything when I'm packing. So that's more, I guess technically it's kind of work related, but it's more personal.
No, that makes sense. I played around with Notion using it like on my own too for a little bit, and I loved it when I had it, but I eventually just like went back to the Apple Notes and everything, and I was like, it reigns supreme. It's incredible. So you mentioned right there, you said you bring in, microphones, cameras and everything. And you told me that you have your iPhone 16 Pro, you have your Fujifilm X100V and DJI mics when you go and bring content and everything. So let's paint the picture. You're at St. Pete, you're packing up, ready to go to the racetrack in the morning. How do you decide what comes with you? Is it just everything? Or are you like, you know what, today's just iPhone and DJI mics and that's it? Or is it, what's that process like?
I am a pack mule. I'm a bag lady. I bring everything with me that I will ever
Very
need in
good.
my life. I thankfully, again, since it's very, 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 very rare. I don't think I've been to one race, maybe two in the last 4 years that I wasn't credentialed media.
Right.
So I have access to a media center and a seat at a place that I can
Yes.
leave all my things. Most races are, secure enough that I can leave my laptop and walk away, leave my camera and walk away because there's security in a room. And,
Right.
obviously there's a few races where I don't leave everything behind, but I just bring everything to the track with me. And if I don't touch it all day and it sits in the media center all day, that's fine, but I'd rather have it and not use it. So
Absolutely,
everything comes with me.
Absolutely. When we went to St. Pete last year, I had borrowed my wife's like crossbody bag, and it was incredible to carry everything. I was like hands-free, but I had enough space for like a camera, my headphones, my microphone. Like my phone was always in my back pocket that I could just like snap it out and record if I needed to. Yeah. And it makes sense too. Just like you said, you're bringing everything. 'Cause you never know with the media spots and everything too. It's a nice, I agree with you. It's better to have it than to not have it.
Like if I'm going to bring my bag and leave everything in the media center and I'm going to go to pit lane and I don't necessarily know what I'm going to need in pit lane, my like usual on my body 99% of the time anyway is my phone, my mics, and my camera, just because I'll always have pockets. And so I'll have my phone in my pocket, I'll have my DJI mics in another pocket, and I'll have like my camera just like strapped around me. And I'm hands-free and it's not carrying too much on me, but that is, everything I would need in order for, content creation or content capture, those three things. So it's pretty easy to carry those around.
So, okay, so that kind of leads me to my next question then. When you're in pit lane, you're taking photos, do you switch between, like, do you take a photo with the Fujifilm and then grab your iPhone and take a shot? Or are you like, I'm going to stick with Fujifilm for a little bit? How does that work?
Yeah, there's a few factors, and there's definitely been a lot of times where I'm like, I know that there's gonna be a moment coming up, so like either a pit stop that I want to be able to capture on both, and I've tried doing both at the same time, some successfully, some not. But it's really dependent on a few factors. I think first and foremost is at that point when I'm in pit lane, 99% of the time I have an idea of the content that I'm looking to capture. From my ideas of kind of the B-roll that I need, or, if I'm making an informational, educational video about how a pit stop works, then obviously I would prioritize my phone because I'm doing video. I don't really use my Fuji for video too much just because it's not really made for video. Certain cameras are made for certain things. I can take video on it, but it's kind of shaky and the audio quality is trash. So if it's video, it's always 99% of the time it's on my phone. If it's content dependent of something that I'm looking strictly to capture, it's phone. If I have to make a choice between the two, what I'll typically do is if it's something that I know is going to repeat itself, so like a pit stop, I know that I'm going to be able to capture hopefully more than one pit stop in a time in pit lane. I'll do the first few with my phone. And then if I have time, I will be able to go around and take photos with my camera. And kind of the exception to that rule really is, it was funny, I was actually talking about the head of digital and social at IMSA about this probably 2 weeks ago. His name is Doug O'Donnell, and he's fabulous. He's great. And he has this thing where I work with the IMSA digital and social team on some of their strategic initiatives, and I've become very close with the team, and I work hand in hand with the team most weekends, working kind of on behalf of IMSA, but on behalf of GridClick. It's kind of hard to explain, but I've worked with their team pretty closely, and we collaborate on a lot of content for IMSA. And I've worked with them. This is going to be really my third season working with them, my second full-time season, but I got to know them back in 2024, so really my third season. And Doug always makes a joke of every time I walk into the office and I'm like, all right, guys, like, what are you looking for today? Is there anything specifically you need? Is there any events? Is there any, angle? Is there anything that you are looking to talk more about on your channels?
Right.
And, obviously sometimes they'll tell me what, they have going on, especially if it comes to, oh, we have this free event for kids, if you can go cover that, or, obviously very things that are pertinent to our channel as well as to what they're doing. But a lot of the times Doug just looks at me and he just goes, find a moment, Sarah. And I go, okay, Doug. And it works. Like there are things that obviously you plan for going into the weekend, but I found obviously the algorithm is the algorithm and you can't really predict it. And the things that always, I feel like any creator can relate to this, the things that succeed the most oftentimes are ones that aren't necessarily planned. So a lot of like the viral videos that I've done with IMSA have been literally those moments of, there was one of them that it was like 11 p.m. or no, it was like sunset at the 24-hour Rolex race at Daytona. And I was visiting my friend who had a trailer, and I was standing on top of the trailer looking at the banking, and I saw that there was a group of like 5 cars coming together, and I was like, okay, that's sick. Like, it doesn't happen super often. In sports cars, it happens more often than not, thankfully. That's why we love sports cars. But it was just like with the sunset in the background, and I just took that video because I was like, that's going to be cool. And it got like 3 million views, like just because it's a moment, right? And so in those instances, most of the time, again, I'm going to use my phone because most of the time they're video. But I'm also just a photo nerd. I wanted to be a photographer growing up. I wanted to go to college for photography. My parents said, absolutely not. If we were paying for your college education, which thankfully they did, and I'm forever grateful, they said, you will not be going to school for photography. And I said, okay, yeah, I would really prefer if you pay for it, then I guess do what I want, but that's fine. So I'm selfishly always going to be taking pictures just kind of for my own joy. And like those I'll send them to IMSA if they want them, but for most time it's really just for me and just to my own joy. So it is very, very long-winded answer of saying I do use both. Sometimes it's planned, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just kind of go with your gut and see what happens.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that's those moments where it's like, it just in your gut, you're like, I know that this is going to be a great photo or video, or whatever it is, and that you have the tools, ready to kind of grab that moment in the moment is incredible.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of like shift over to organizational stuff now, and you kind of touched on it with Apple Notes, but you talked about like when you're working with IMSA and you go in and you say, hey, we want this, or what do you guys need from me today? Is there a different way that you organize that between your like client commitments versus your personal commitments? Like how do you balance that? Is it still just like the Apple Notes? What's that look like?
Yeah. So for races that I'm primarily there for client work, they're always going to obviously take priority. I love the content creation stuff, but gotta prioritize paying for my rent and paying the bills. And I obviously love my clients that I work for. So thankfully, usually how it works is the races that I'm there primarily for client work, most of my motorsports clients I've met through GridClick in some capacity, or they know about GridClick.
Right.
So they know, then they give me free reign to do GridClick stuff outside of my primary work commitment. So like, for example, at St. Pete, I was there primarily to help with Christian Rasmussen. I was doing the PR for a merch collab that he was doing with a female-owned brand, and there was proceeds going to female women in motorsports. So obviously still is something that I love, but it was a client project. It was a PR project. So any commitments that I had for that would always come first. But outside of what work needs to be done in that capacity, everyone's so happy for me to be doing GridClick stuff as well. And so there's only been one race in my mind over the last few years that I was like, felt very overwhelmed because I signed myself up to do way too many things in a race weekend.
Right.
And, there was the 2024 season, I was doing the full season of PR for an IndyCar team. And so any race that I was there for the IndyCar team, I obviously was in Team Kit doing full PR for them. And so some races I just wasn't able to do GridClick stuff because time just didn't allow. And that's okay. It is what it is, right? So, I wish GridClick could take up more of my priorities sometimes, but that's just not always the case, right? I have to do my work first.
Yeah.
So, you know, most of the time I'm doing my PR stuff and my marketing stuff, I know what I'm doing. I don't really have to have it written down necessarily. I mean, mostly I have to have written down as like my schedule, but again, for the most part, I have a lot of my schedule just like in the back of my head already. I kind of know everything that's going on. So that's not, I don't put my schedules together like that. Like I wouldn't put my work stuff into my like content note, for example, because they're just like two separate parts of my brain.
Yep. I know exactly what that feels like. It's just like two separate pillars, and it's just like this one doesn't go even near this one. It's
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what was you told the story with IMSA about how they, you know, when you walk in, you ask the question, what do you guys need today? And they're just like, get what you want. What was, if you can remember, what was the first time that happened? What was that like? Was that like nerve-wracking? Was it just, because that's kind of, to me at least, I'm also a list person. So like if someone can look at me and say, hey, I need this shot of this, and this video of this, I'm like, cool, I can get you that. I have full confidence. The moment that somebody's like, you're good, you can figure it out, I'm like, that's where I'm like, oh, like, can I? So like, what was that moment like for you the first time?
I actually really like it.
Okay.
Just because, yes, of course I can, if someone asks me to go get certain content of certain things, that's very straightforward and easy to do.
Yeah.
But I like having the freedom of being able to walk around and find those moments, because I think one of the most beautiful things about motorsports is when you're at a race and on the ground, you see so many amazing things that you just aren't shown on TV, right? The racing is shown on TV, but the infield with all of the fans, you know, drinking together, hanging out, making new friends, people engaging with each other, or kids running around, like, you obviously don't see that on TV. And in my opinion, I think that's one of the most special things is the community and is the fandom and is, you know, the corner behind a bathroom that no TV is located at, but it has a really cool view of a really cool section of the track that, you know, you can get really interesting content from, right? So I like being able to have the time and the freedom and the flexibility to explore those things. And listen, sometimes Doug says, go find a moment. And I come back at the end of the day, I'm like, listen, I got nothing.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. And it's not a deal breaker. They understand, because at the end of the day, anything that I provide them is a bonus to them. They wouldn't get anything that I'm providing them without me, obviously. So, and I kind of know how they work, and I know what they're looking for, and I know what they would like. And thankfully, and I think that's why we work so well together, is it really aligns well with what I like, right? So during a pre-race grid, where in IMSA it's an open grid and anyone can go into pit lane and look at the cars and talk to the drivers. You know, there's so many kids, there's dogs, people are like dressed up in costumes. Like, it's such a fun environment that it's almost very difficult to not find cool moments that are happening that wouldn't be shown elsewhere.
That's awesome. That's such a cool moment. And I remember when Casey and I first went to Miami for the Formula One race, and that was our first F1 race and our first ever like motorsport event in general.
Wow. Huge.
When we crossed over the bridge, like into the inner part of the track and just like in the fields with the stands and, like you said, all the fans and everything, I was like, this is incredible in here. It's just such a unique experience to be in that moment. And that's, awesome. So in the form I sent you, you mentioned that like when you're taking photos and everything, you're storing them across kind of like iCloud, OneDrive. Do you have any sort of like physical media that you're carrying to store photos, or is it just all iCloud, and then when you get back, you're kind of, you know, pulling them down from the cloud and everything? What does that look like, or your on-track storage look like?
So 99% of the time, obviously everything I capture on my phone stays on my phone. If I'm taking it on my camera, my Fujifilm, I can actually airdrop straight from my camera to my phone. So if I need something immediately, I'll just share it straight to my phone. If I take 500 pictures in a day and I need to sift through them and I have time at the end of the day to do that, I'll upload them to my computer, and that's when they go to OneDrive. And just because it's when I'm obviously putting an SD card into my computer, I want to have it on my computer files, and I can access my OneDrive from my phone as well if I need to.
Right.
So I'm able, in my brain, it doesn't really matter if it's iCloud or OneDrive. I know I can access it somewhere. And then at the end of the race weekend, which I'm bad at keeping up with and I need to be better at, is I tried to download everything from my SD card and clear out my SD card after a race. Last season, I think I went 10 races without doing that. And so I had, I have like a 2 terabyte SD card, so it was fine. But I was like getting to the point where one more race would have put me over. I was like, I need to clear out my SD card. And like, if something happens to my camera or if something happens to the SD card, if it corrupts, like I'm losing all of that because there were obviously things that I had sent to my phone, but anything I hadn't sent to my phone only lived in my camera. So I'm trying to be better at it this year. I'm trying to, after every single race, upload all of my photos onto my computer just so I can have them in one repository.
That's good. Yeah, that is a scary thought of like having the physical only media, and then it's like, oh crap, now I have to, if I lose this one thing, I'm done.
Let's say my water leaks in my bag and the SD card gets wet and it gets corrupted or something. Like, if this camera ever goes on me, I will be very, very upset because I've had it. It took me a very long time to track it down and find, because this was back in the day where this is X100V and it was all sold out and nobody was reselling it. If they were reselling it, it was like twice the price. And every single race for 6 months, I went on Facebook Marketplace in that city and looked for this camera, and I finally was able to get it. Chicago Street Course, NASCAR's first year, which was 23, like June 2023, July 2023. And this thing is my baby. Like, I spent a pretty penny on it, I'm not gonna lie, but any camera nowadays is expensive, and the cost per use I've gone on this thing is pennies now. But I don't want to replace her anytime soon. So I'm knock on wood, nothing has happened yet. So I really hope nothing happens. But we're not manifesting that energy.
That's awesome. I mean, that is, it's such a cool camera. I've looked into that camera like a tiny little bit. I go on these like kicks where I'm like really interested into like some form of whatever niche hobby, and recently it was photography, and I was like, oh, I should get a camera, and I looked it up and I was like, this is not gonna go well. I love that it also has the airdrop feature. That is just so handy and like such a useful experience to have. It's just like, I don't even need to like leave where I'm at, and I can just drop it over to my phone like right away. That is amazing. The
number of times I've taken pictures of friends and like a minute later, I text it to them. They're like, how did you do that? I'm like, oh, I just sent it to my phone. Like, it just took it. I didn't edit it or anything, but you have it now.
That's like one of those things that it's like, I think of like stupid tech that they're putting like Wi-Fi and everything in, where it's like, why does my dishwasher need Wi-Fi? But it's like, that's one of those things where it's like, oh, this makes sense that you put Bluetooth in a camera, because this is a great functionality for it. And it's awesome. So when you edit all these photos and everything, and you're moving through them and everything, you said that you natively edit them in app. Is that videos? Actually, I should like put a disclaimer there. So like when you're editing videos, you're just doing it straight in like TikTok or Instagram?
I typically, it depends on the piece of content. If it's like a trend to a trending audio, I'll usually just do it in Instagram, and I save it on Instagram. I need to get better at using TikTok. I don't post on TikTok a lot, and I know I should be because I'm making the video anyway, so I might as well. That kind of goes to the wayside. That's a whole other conversation. But I usually edit natively in Instagram. But if it's something that's more like, it's not a trend or it's not a specific audio, it's not something like that. Most of the time, if it's like an educational video, if I'm doing voiceovers, I'll always do that in CapCut. I've done it on Adobe Premiere before. I have Adobe Premiere, but on my phone, CapCut is just a lot easier. It's simpler. It's more straightforward. I don't necessarily love Instagram's native editing. I know that they have the new app now, Edits. I don't know anything about that. I've only ever done it within Instagram itself. But I've just found that CapCut is super easy. It has all of the transitions I need. It has all of the templates I need. It has all of the fonts I need. It's just very easy to do quickly on my phone or on my computer, because I have it on my computer as well. And then if it's something like we used to probably years ago do like long form videos on YouTube, that is when I'd really use Premiere, just because that's obviously trying to compile hours and hours of footage into a small thing. It's a much bigger project than just quickly kind of doing a voiceover and clipping something together.
Right. So are you, when you do it on CapCut, are you editing like live, like right there at the track? Or is it like once you go home for the day, it's like, all right, let me filter through and see. I can imagine you mentioned like doing like voiceovers and everything. I can imagine that's post race, you're like back home and chilling out and everything. And but like, is there anything that you quickly like take it and you're editing it right away? Or you're at least like maybe adding it to like a timeline?
It's funny you say that. Again, this is something I'm really bad at, is like once I'm off the racetrack, either during race weekend or once I'm home, my brain just goes right back to work. And so I don't really think about content. I don't really edit a lot of content at home. And that's why GridClick is not as successful as some other communities. It's just because neither Samantha nor I have the time or the bandwidth to devote a lot of that time outside of the races that we go to, just because we do have full-time jobs and there's a lot going on. So when you're like, oh, I'm sure that when you do your voiceovers, like when you're home, no. When I'm doing my voiceovers, I'm like hidden under a desk with a sweatshirt over my head, telling everyone around me to stay quiet. And like, or trying to find like a hidden room in the back of the media center. In Daytona, I had to do a voiceover for a video, an informational video we were doing. And like, there is this like secret hallway out of like the back of the media center that leads to like an office. And that office during race weekend is kind of empty, but then halfway through sometimes there'd be like janitors walking through and like I'm trying to like record something and then like someone's vacuuming and I'm like, oh crap, okay, I gotta start that again.
Right,
like,
let me do that one more time.
Or a lot of times I'll look at the race schedule, I'm like, okay, there's a 20-minute break where the track is cold. I can go to find a place on track that not a ton of people are gonna be at, and I know that no cars are gonna be on track, and I'll do it outside. It's not a perfect system, but the microphones are really good, and I think that there's also an authenticity in that as well. Like if you hear cars in the background of a voiceover, oh, shock cam at a racetrack as I'm talking about racing. So, you know, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but yeah, there's definitely been times where I've like gone to interview drivers, and the only time that they have is when the track is hot, and the only place they can do it is because they have 5 minutes in the paddock, and it's like so loud. And there's times where I've had to scrap content because we've done an interview and you can't hear a freaking thing, or like, you know, whatever the issue is, right? So, again, it's not a perfect system, but you just find workarounds. You find ways to do it.
Honestly, when we were starting this journey, I was like looking up tons of things of just like, you know, how to record like great voiceovers, you know, how to do this, how to do that. And the one thing I kept coming across was like, if you're going to do a voiceover, one of the best places to do it is literally just like a jacket closet.
Yeah.
And it's like, because you're locked in, everything is muffling the sound. And I forget, we were doing a video for, I think it was the F1 arcade, and I needed to do a voiceover for it. And I was like, let me go upstairs in my closet real fast. And I like shut the door, recorded it. I listened back to it. I was like, oh, this sounds incredible. Like, and I was just like, perfect. Yeah. So I get that. Just so like, let me go hide away somewhere, throw a jacket over my head and record right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
That is awesome. So, okay. So you mentioned that you used to do like longer form YouTube videos and everything. I was going to ask like, where is the line for when you would pull something into Premiere? But it sounds like it was when you guys did, you know, YouTube videos. You don't do that more so as often now. Is there still like anything that is just like, all right, this maybe would be better in Premiere, or no?
Not really, just because a lot of the content that we're doing doesn't require it. Like CapCut has everything that I need, and that sounds like, I think at the beginning of the journey, I felt very weird about, coming from, the advertising, marketing, PR world, where anytime I need to edit a video for a corporate job was always going to be in an Adobe Suite product, and it was never going to be on CapCut. And when I started, and it's the same like with Canva, like I use Canva now instead of Photoshop or Illustrator, when, for years, all I used was Photoshop or Illustrator. And now I'm like, anything I really need is kind of in Canva, and it feels weird, but like sometimes, especially as it comes to content creation, specifically the content that we're creating, it's just not that deep. It doesn't require that level of stuff. We don't need all the bells and whistles. We need a way to cut clips, fix audio if we need to fix audio, and add some like overlays and images sometimes.
Right.
And you can do all of that in CapCut. I don't need to have, I obviously still pay for the Adobe Creative Cloud, unfortunately, for my job, but we don't need to take all of that out and use all the bells and whistles because we don't need it.
It is amazing, honestly, like how many either free or like low cost tools. And I say low cost because Adobe is so like exuberantly expensive. It's insane.
Yeah.
But like how many free or low cost tools there are to like get the job done. And
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with you with like when you the CapCut thing. Like that would be my first thought to it. I'd be like, I've done Adobe like as long as I can remember. And I'm going over to this app called CapCut. Like what is that? You know, this isn't gonna look good. And then you finish the video and you're like, oh wow, this looks great.
Yeah, and
Like
it was easy.
I did a great yeah.
And we do pay for Pro on both Canva and CapCut, but
Yeah.
I think both of them, like Canva every year is like $100 or something,
Yeah.
and CapCut is like, I don't know, $80 a year. And so for us, I mean, I'm able to use it for my full-time job as well, and the stuff that I'm doing for clients on track. So I'm able to tax deduct it as part of my business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
I'm still
yeah.
paying for it, obviously,
Right.
but you know, I would pay $200 to be able to use both of those free reign Pro.
Yeah.
Easy.
Did you okay, so when I don't know how much you follow like Apple specific news, but when they came out with the Creator Studio, did you look into that or did you know about that drop coming out or no?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So okay, so
Sorry.
short version, Apple came out with a thing called Creator Studio, and it's essentially like it's Final Cut Pro, it's Logic Pro, it's a bunch of like it's kind of like Canva, but it's meant for creators, kind of to compete with Adobe, and it's only like $12.99 a month. And when it dropped, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, this is great! You know, this is so much cheaper than Adobe." But you have your workflows in CapCut and Canva set up and everything, so yeah, you absolutely stick with what you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, switching over from the Adobe stuff to CapCut, you'd be like, whoa, like this is weird. But then, yeah, you get into it and you're like, all right, this is totally fine. It looks perfectly normal.
Yeah, I definitely cringed at myself at first because in my mind, obviously there's coming as like a working professional, like trying to use a Canva as a working professional or like CapCut as a working professional I was like, ooh, like I'm using CapCut and Canva now. This is a little
feels
cringy.
a little icky.
And I don't mean to be mean with that. It's just like drilled in my brain. I graduated college in 2017 and I've been, you know, in corporate environments for the last 9 years of my life, pretty much. And that's just like what's drilled into you. And then after like the first few videos and the first few things in CapCut, or in Canva as well, I was like, this is great. Like, this is awesome. And I like dropped all of my judgments immediately. And I shouldn't have judged in the first place. I should not have.
No, but I mean, you're right though. Like what Adobe does really well is they have that like mindset of like, if I want professional grade videos, images, stuff like that, I'm using Photoshop, I'm using Premiere Pro. So yeah, it makes sense that you would come out and thinking that, and any other tool you're originally just going to be like, ooh, like I don't know how I feel about this, but no, we use Canva. I love it. I think it's so easy to use and it's so nice, and I like that it's on my Mac, it's on my iPad, it's on my phone. I can pick something up on my Mac and finish it and go on to my iPad later, and 3 hours later I'm right back where I started on my iPad. So I really do enjoy that. It's nice. So when you are publishing stuff, you know, obviously you finish up your stuff in CapCut, you finish up your stuff in Canva. Are you scheduling it? Is that dependent on like GridClick stuff or client deliverable stuff? Like, are you batch scheduling? Is it spur of the moment? Just like, all right, I finished this TikTok or I finished this Instagram. Here you go. Like now, and I'm just gonna, you know, toss it out there. How do you organize, I guess, all of the publishing part of it?
So I do not execute social for any of my clients. That's at least up until this point, it has not been a service that I've offered.
Right.
Sounding like it might be something I'm going to be doing soon, apparently. But I've always, social execution, videos, content stuff has always primarily just been for GridClick or GridClick/IMSA, which is the same thing in my opinion. So I think that's kind of first. If I was doing it for client stuff, I think I'd definitely use the scheduling feature a lot. I think I'd be approaching things differently. But since I'm primarily doing it through GridClick, it's again kind of a mixed bag on the content in that day, right? So if I'm taking content of like a driver autograph session that I want to get out immediately, I'm just going to edit that and get it out immediately because it's talking about what happened that day. Or if I'm doing a preview of something. So I'm at the track on a Thursday to get B-roll and content and edit a video that I know that I want to post like the morning of the race to be like, this is what to look out for during the race. Then that's something that I don't usually schedule it. I'll usually just like set an alarm and still do it myself because I should probably trust the scheduling system, but I just don't. I'd rather be hands-on and post it myself and do it myself. Or also, like, for example, if it's a piece of content that is going to be collaborated with IMSA, I'll have it edited, saved in my drafts, and then when I get to the tracker, if I'm already on track and I've edited it, I just walk into their office, I show it to them physically, and I say, hey, are you good with this? And usually they're like, yep, okay, good. And then either I say, okay, when is open time in your posting schedule? So during sessions, they are very good at posting all of the competition stuff. So if we're posting anything that's not competition focused, so anything that's not directly on track or, performance or something, they'll typically say, it's like, okay, we have like these 3 posts going out about like who qualified positions, whatever, in the next hour. So why don't we do in like 2 hours? And I'm like, okay. So I just set an alarm for 2 hours from then. I post it, add them as a collaborator, and that's that. It's kind of rare that I've just found in this case, I think it's very rare for me to create and edit content way before it goes out. I usually do it same day. Like I'll go out, take the video, do the voiceover, edit it, and post it.
Damn.
And usually just do it all at once. Just because that's what works for me. If I'm sitting on a bunch of drafts, my ADHD brain just kind of forgets that they're there. And of course I have to list, but then it gets to Sunday and I have 3 things sitting in my draft and nothing's posted, and I'm then posting 3 things in a day, and So I think I typically will edit and post at that time or same
at that
day.
Moment.
Very, worst case next day. Or again, if I know that I want to post something on Sunday, but I need B-roll from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'll be filming Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then edit and post on Sunday.
Nice. Okay. So, all right. So that kind of raises an interesting question then with the client deliverable side of it. Is there have there ever been like any portals or anything that you've like delivered content to, or is it literally just how you described it, where it's like you walk into a room, they're sitting there, and you're like, "Hey, cool with this?" And they're like, "Yeah," and that's it. Like, is it pretty much
time,
like a manual?
Yeah, I usually just show it to them, and then sometimes, Rob, who is one of the guys that works on the IMSA team, if he sees a clip in a video, he's like, "Oh, can you send me the raw version of that?" And I just will airdrop him whatever videos he wants. Or they were doing a content piece last year about all the kids that show up to the track, because it's kids 12 and under are free at IMSA.
Right.
So throughout the season, I was taking content, of families and such. Obviously getting people's permission and everything, but I was kind of taking that content over the season, and I airdropped it to him at the end. The last race of the season, we were talking about that, and I was thinking, you know what? I've taken so many videos of dogs at the racetrack that I've never done anything with. And he's like, great, let's do something with it. So I sent him all the videos, and he ended up posting it just on IMSA because I had the content, and I was like, I'm not using it, so here you go. Yeah. And he's like, great, cool. And I literally just airdrop it to him, and that's pretty much it.
That's all. I mean, it's nice that it's I don't know. In my head, I've always had this idea that it's such a well-built organization and everything, and they all have these extensive workflows. But like you said, 99% of the time, it's hey, I have this photo on my phone. Do you like it? Okay, cool. Publish.
I also don't work internally, right? So I'm sure that everything that I send them, they host somewhere and they put somewhere in their internal system, so they have a record of it. Yeah. But I'm a consultant, so I don't work with them in that capacity.
So okay, so when you're at an IMSA race, and you think you've answered this, kind of as we've gone along and everything, but let's say checkered flag flies, race is done. What is the next 3 hours look like to you? Where are you going? Who are you talking to? What's that like for you?
Yeah, so this is any race that I have a media credential at. So and based on access, typically more IMSA, IndyCar, NASCAR, because F1 is kind of a different beast. But, in those 3 where I have proper access as media credential, I am going to try to be either in pit lane or kind of as close as I can get to the checkered flag to get video footage of that. And then obviously any following burnouts or team celebrations. If I can sit in the pit box of a team that maybe doesn't win super often, they're going to start screaming like crazy when their driver crosses the line, and you can kind of sometimes get both of that content in one because you're in pit lane, so you can get checkered flag and the team celebrating.
Right.
Then I dip on over to Podium and I get content of the podium. And then I run back to the media center because there's always going to be the post-race press conferences with the top 3 drivers. I don't video that, but I will always listen in and get any sound bites or quotes or anything that could be interesting for us to use for content. Thankfully, most series will also provide either the transcript or the audio recordings that they have in the room. But I like to be there to kind of hear if someone says something like really funny or interesting, then I'm like, okay, I catalog that. I know that I want to talk about that. I know that I want to pull that audio clip. I know I want to pull the exact quote from the transcript. And then kind of with any of that footage, again, depending on if I have plans for that, or there's a lot of times I do all of that and then there's nothing super interesting for me to do with, and then I just don't do anything with it and I go home. I don't want to know how many photos and videos on my phone right now. And the ones that have been unlooked and untouched is probably a lot.
I'm sure. Are you rocking like 2 terabyte iPhone?
I pay for iCloud. I pay for 2 terabytes of iCloud. And with the new update, I actually don't know how to see how many. Oh, I have, you're ready for this? 150,000 photos and 24,000 videos on my phone. And I can tell you, half of them probably haven't been watched ever again. More than half. So, I will always get all of that content in case there is a story to come of it, in case there is a need for it, in case someone does need it, if the team wants it, or, I was, when I was at St. Pete, and one of my, good friends was on the race-winning car as a mechanic, and he was on the podium, and I, took some sly pictures of him, and I just sent them to him. He's like, that's so cool to have. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll always just try to get the content, whether it goes anywhere or not, just to have it. So yeah, after the press conferences, I'm either editing and posting something, or I'm saying, okay, that's it. I'm good.
Yeah.
And
see you later.
Go home. Yeah, pretty much.
Very nice. That's cool that you did that for your friend too. That would be I love when I was in swimming, there would be moments like that where somebody would get a really good photo of me that I didn't even know was happening. I was like, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I try to do it for all my mechanic friends because nobody takes pictures of them. They always take pictures of the drivers.
Yeah.
And I try to do it for my photographer friends because they're always the one taking the pictures and nobody takes pictures of them. So I know it's more of it's superfluous, but if I have the time, and again, I just like taking pictures. I want to be a photographer, so if I see a moment that looks cool, I'm going to capture it. And if it turns out crap, it turns out crap. Okay, whatever. But follow my heart.
You're the unsung hero of the paddock. I'm sure tons of people have been like, she got a picture of me. That is awesome.
Every time somebody posts on Instagram a picture that I took of them or a video I took of them the week after, I'm like, I did something. That was me. I did that.
That's my photo right there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is incredible. So, all right. So you mentioned, sometimes after the media pen, you're just like, you know what? I'm good. I don't have anything to do. Go home. After a race, are you doing any sort of analysis of your photos? I know you mentioned kind of Canva decks and everything to client deliverables. What does that analysis kind of look like for you? What's that process like?
Yeah. So, if I had more time and energy and bandwidth, I would probably be sifting through all of my photos and trying to pick out the ones that I want to do something with. But most of the time, any post-race analysis or anything is for a client deliverable. So for example, after every IMSA race, I'll give them, since our collaborative posts are originated from me, they don't have access to all the analytics. So I usually give it about a week for any kind of post to pop off or get engagement or whatever, maybe 2. And I'll put all the analytics together in a deck so they can, see how everything performed, and we can kind of move forward with that information. We can see, okay, if this went viral, why do we think it went viral? Can we try to replicate it at some point? Is there a series we can turn into? Any kind of that thought process. But that's kind of it. As I said earlier, I wish I had more time and bandwidth to focus more on a lot of analysis and a lot of pre-planning, but a lot of times I just have to go right back into my work stuff because I've been on track since Thursday, and I might have gotten an email on Friday that I might have not replied to, and Monday morning comes and I'm like, okay, gotta get back to my job. So again, thankfully I love all of my clients. I have a fantastic relationship with all of my clients. there's never been, even my software and tech clients, they know I'm going to these races and they think that it's so cool. And they're like, yeah, go for it. I'll talk to you on Monday. So like I was supposed to have a meeting next week and with one of my tech clients. And I was on a call this morning about it. And I was like, oh, I'm not available Thursday and Friday. What I always say is I'm at a client offsite. And they're like, oh, what race are you going to now? Tell me all about it.
They know.
So it's like, everyone's super chill and cool. And I have been the person in the media center working on a post-earnings board report in the media center. And I've had Doug come up to me and say, oh my God, are you working on a post-earnings board report? And I go, yes, Doug, I am. Because
yes, I am.
It's just it's nature of the game when you're a consultant is you kind of just got to be doing things at all times. I've taken a lot of work meetings in media centers. Again, thankfully, all of my clients are super cool with it. If not just cool, they're encouraging about it. So I feel very lucky in that capacity.
Yeah. So this is our last question, and I feel like it's like something that's very critical in your role and everything. How do you know like what details or I guess like numbers and everything a client cares about? Like are you saying like if you have more time, you would do more analysis and everything, but like out of what you do, like how do you have that feeling of like, all right, I want to give this to my clients, you know, like this is what I should be delivering to them versus maybe what I shouldn't be delivering to them?
That is a great question. I think one of the really cool things about my very strange career trajectory is that since I worked on the internal side of, I've been in-house, I've worked for agencies and PR and marketing. I know what we've requested of other people. I know that what we were looking for internally for our goals and a lot of the things that I do for GridClick, I try to think on like a 10,000 foot scale of what does this industry need to be talking about more? What do I find interesting that I think the series doesn't talk about enough? And 9 times out of 10, the series or the team or whoever I'm working with will also be thinking the same thing of, we're not talking about this enough. Again, i.e. like the dogs, the kids, that kind of stuff. It's like, these are really cool things that are happening on track that just aren't being spoken about. And so since that's just how my brain works, is to see those things and say, okay, that would be super helpful for people to know about this series because this is a really cool thing about the series, right? And especially as it comes to like the data analytics and stuff. Again, PR marketing is my job, so being on like the media side of it, I feel like I have a completely different lens because I know exactly what the PR marketing side is, because that's where my brain goes first. And I say, okay, I don't have to hire someone to fill this gap. I don't have to, try to tell a team that they should fill this gap. I can just go and do it myself. Right? And, when I was working again for that IndyCar team for the full season doing their PR, like they didn't have a media program, right? They had never really walked into the media center and said, hi, I'm from this team. Nice to meet you. And so every time they had news going out, they didn't have those relationships. So since I'd come from the team side and I've worked in that PR person capacity, but I've also been in the media center for years, I was able to walk in and say, okay, I know both of you, let's talk. Like, it's being able to have both sides of that knowledge. So it's very easy for me to kind of put together what I think the client or the person, who I'm working for in that capacity would want. And also, again, I have this relationship with my clients that if I send them data information, they say, can you also send us this? Yeah, absolutely. I'll put that to them. So it's a lot, again, 9 times out of 10, they don't really ask for me to do it. I just do it because I'm going to do it anyway. So I might as well send it to them. And I know for IMSA, again, it's been IMSA and NASCAR, especially when we first worked with NASCAR back in 2023, and they reached out to us and said, we want to start an influencer creator program, but we don't have a huge budget for it. We need to convince leadership to create a budget. If we fly you out for a few races and, we pay you a certain amount to do certain things, like, can you basically help us convince them to give us money for this for next year? And we're like, heck yeah, totally down, right? And so after that year, we gave them all of our information, all of our data analytics. They were able to secure a big budget, and now they have this massive influencer program, right? And so
that's incredible.
After doing that, I went to IMSA because NASCAR is owned by IMSA, but they're very siloed. IMSA is owned by NASCAR, but they're very siloed. And the IMSA digital and social team didn't know the influencer partnerships manager at NASCAR. And I said, here's her number, talk to her. She's got all the decks and information for you to get your budget, because we just did this and it's your leadership. So here you go. Right. So it's, again, since my brain automatically goes to that side of the business side of things, of the marketing side of things, of like how I love motorsports so much. So how can we talk about it better?
Yeah.
And then I'm able to just go and do that instead of like trying to tell someone else, like trying to tell a series to go and do it or trying to tell someone else to go and do it. I just go and do it myself. So, yeah.
That is incredible. It was such a good story to end on. I love that. My gosh.
Yeah, it's, again, complicated. Going back to the beginning, it's like, it's so hard for me to be like, all right, this is what I do. Because it's like, it all kind of melts together, which I love. It's a beautiful thing. I'm able to wake up and say that I play race cars for a living. So
it's great. And it doesn't get any better than that, honestly.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really, really appreciate it. I was so excited about this interview just to learn, more about what you do, but also the tech that you use to do it. So thank you for everyone for listening and viewing. I'll paste Sarah's and GridClick's social medias below and everything. Make sure to go give them a follow. It's a lovely page. It's awesome. I remember Casey telling me about it when we first started this, and I immediately was like, this is incredible. But yeah, thank you again tonight, Sarah. Thank you. And we will see you later.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here and talking about everything. And if anyone has any questions or wants to talk more about stuff, shoot me a DM. I'm kind of bad with my DM sometimes, but shoot me a DM and, we can get in touch and chat about anything.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Talk to you later.